Hey everyone, and welcome to this video or podcast, depending on how you're choosing to watch or listen to this. So today is the first episode in taking a look back at the first 250 Looney Tunes, which was a milestone I passed not too long ago at the time of this recording, where I watched over 250 Looney Tunes in 250 days and did commentaries for each one. Now, if you're watching this on YouTube, please be aware that this is also going to be available on various podcast services, and I have links below for that. And if you're watching this via podcast, be sure to check out the YouTube channel for some more exciting content, including all my commentaries on the Looney Tunes series. So for this episode, I've interviewed a few people who are diehard fans of the Looney Tunes series for their thoughts. They are part of what we, or actually more me, what we like to call everyone, as part of the Hobo Gadget Band. So first up, hi, I'm Anthony, member of the Hobo Gadget Band. I'm a long-time animation fan and amateur researcher, currently undertaking a mission to do commentaries for every single Looney Tunes short ever made.
Hi, I'm Austin Kelly, member of the Hobo Gadget Band. You also know me as Bunch of Softies, aka the guy who's assisted Anthony on dozens of his commentaries thus far.
Hi, I'm Blue Genocide, member of the Hobo Gadget Band. I'm just another YouTuber.
What is up, peeps? It's Eli Copperman. I'm part of the Hobo Gadget Band, and it is so much fun to be here with my boy Anthony, just chatting about cartoons and a bunch of other dumb stuff. Unfortunately, I'm recording with this microphone instead of this boy, but who cares? We're here to have fun.
Hello, I'm S.E. McPeter. I'm a member of the Hobo Gadget Band, and I'm from New York, and I'm an aspired animator and animation historian.
Hi everyone, I'm Seth Stilley. I'm a member of the Hobo Gadget Band, and I'm also a regional manager of Buddy's Bearcats in my spare time, and a longtime fan, and it's nice to finally be on the channel.
Hi guys, I'm Fox and Fix, a member of the Go-Go Gadget Band, and I play the flute.
Gee, I love the Hobo Gadget Band name. It's basically the name of a Looney Tunes short that I happen to like. A nice little gem. If you haven't seen it, definitely give it a go. Now, we also have a very special guest for this particular series of episodes, and he's going to add his 2 cents to the discussion. Animation historian Jerry Beck. So in this episode, we are going to take a look at the first major era within the first 250 Looney Tunes, which involves Bosko and the Merrie Melodies series. So let's start at the very beginning. Bosko. Now, Bosko was done at the Harmon and Ising studio, who sold the shorts to Leon Schlesinger, who then sold the shorts to Warner Brothers. These shorts start off very bouncy, with very little story to somewhat proper stories towards the end. So our first topic today involves our thoughts on Bosko in general, along with our favourite shorts and least favourite shorts.
Bosko. Isn't that the $1 million question?
Well, I'm a fan of Bosko. I like Bosko because Bosko is just happy-go-lucky, optimistic. Obviously, these were made during the Depression. They were trying to cheer people up. Everybody was depressed, literally, at that time. And so these cartoons exist just to be entertaining and in their way. And he's just what I call an icon of happiness.
Well, a lot of people say Bosko was kind of a standout of the Harmon and Ising period, but I kind of see him blending in. It's just another one of the happy-go-lucky, anti-Great Depression characters of the day. I feel like he was better than Buddy, but he still didn't really have any character. And I feel that having characters is a strong part of any star who you want to put in a cartoon.
Honestly, when I think of Bosko in general, well, for one thing, he's kind of a stereotype. If you don't see him as an ink blot, like Frizz Free Feeling even said, like, oh yeah, Bosko, he was a little black boy, which is funny because Bob Clampett even said that the future character, Buddy, was basically Bosko in whiteface. When I think of Bosko overall, he was basically Hugh and Rudy's attempt at re-cannibalizing Mickey Mouse without quite understanding what made the Mickey Mouse cartoon so popular. I mean, it's not like Mickey had a very established personality, but his cartoons had a little bit of spunk and, humor here and there.
He's definitely a little bit awkward, in my opinion, to talk about, because I don't know if I think Friz Freleng said himself that he didn't know whether or not Bosko was supposed to be a monkey boy or a racial stereotype. And that, to me, makes it really hard to watch some of the Boskos, especially some of the early ones, because he seems to be a stereotype.
Yeah, Bosko is alright. I mean, he's obviously the poor man's Mickey Mouse.
He's definitely just a Mickey clone, which was really common in the studios, in studios in general at that time. Every studio seemed to have their own Mickey Mouse, just like how in the 1920s everybody had their own Felix the Cat.
No, I mean, Bosko is what Bosko is, and Bosko was a suitable Mickey Mouse surrogate, which is what he was supposed to be. Every studio was doing a version of Mickey Mouse, and not only that, they often in the early entries would even feature characters that literally looked like Mickey Mouse.
From 1929 to 1931, I felt that the Bosko shorts were the weaker half of the Harmon and Ising duel, where I felt that Hugh Harmon didn't necessarily know where he was going with the shorts and that they just do stuff. Some of them have a clever thing here and there, but it just felt sort of bland, I would say. Though there is more to enjoy than you would expect, it's still definitely quite the watch at times. In 1932, I began noticing general improvements over them.
The quality gets better if the stories don't by the time they're at the end of their contract with Schlesinger.
They got funnier, there were snappier moments, and especially there was a lot more nicer animation with, especially towards the end with Bob McKimson. You can finally be able to see his style.
Harmon and Ising, I feel, knew that Bosko wasn't such a great character, and therefore they tried to put him into funny situations rather than putting Bosko into something where Bosko has to be funny himself, because Bosko naturally isn't really a funny character.
The cartoons, the early ones, get off to a good start, and then there's kind of a rough patch afterwards. Like the ones directly after Sinking in the Bathtub were really tough for me to sit through without commentaries, to be honest. But by the last season, like 32 and 33, the animation gets so much better. You can tell there's a lot more production values going on, and honestly, after since all the studios that were trying to be Disney, I think Harmon and Ising really came close to getting there.
Bosko's cartoons, they had their moments for sure, but a lot of it, you know, the gimmick was basically, oh, we're going to time these cartoons out to music and just go from there, and that was kind of the appeal at first. But when it came to his cartoons later on, admittedly, you can tell that they were starting to get like a little more comedic and maybe a bit more personality and, you know, Bosko in person. But aside from that, Bosko's not like the best character in the Looney Tunes history, but he is an important one. If not for Bosko, there would be no Looney Tunes at all.
Yeah, those cartoons are pretty good. I'm more of a fan of the Merrie Melodies, to be honest, but Bosko's fine.
As much as I like the Harmon and Ising era the least, Bosko had got most of the highlights of this period. A few that come to mind are Sinking in the Bathtub, Bosko the Doughboy, Bosko's Party, Bosko's Mechanical Man, and of course I have to have a soft spot for Bosko in Dutch because I'm a Dutchman.
Now, as for me, the Bosko period was an interesting one where, while I can't say these were my favourites, but there is a certain charm about them. They are definitely the kind of shorts that I would not recommend doing what I did for the Looney Tunes commentary project and watch them one after another, as it can get very, very repetitive. Now, that's not the fault of the cartoons themselves. They were just not designed to be watched this way. It seemed like in the beginning that the filmmakers were following Disney's lead with the way the early Mickey Mouse shorts were, but slowly added some story. So Bosko would do more than just, interact with objects and play them like instruments. Now, if you were to give them a go, all the shorts that were on the Looney Tunes Golden Collection Volume 6 are the best, and just about everyone has recommended the shorts that appear in that set. But some further underrated efforts, if you want to check out and go beyond the Looney Tunes Golden Collection Volume 6 to check out, include Bosko the Lumberjack, Bosko's Dog Race and Bosko's Mechanical Man.
Well, one of my favorites is Bosko the Doughboy, where he's not only is he still Bosko, happy-go-lucky, dancing, singing, smiling Bosko, but he's doing it on a battlefield where his friends are being ripped apart in something that's like a Saving Private Ryan, where people are just being ripped up into shreds by bullets, and yet he's cool with that. I don't know. I love that one because it's just so. They put this optimistic character in the absolutely worst place you can possibly be, and I love that.
My favorites, Sinking in the Bathtub, of course, is a classic. Bosko's Picture Show has some good gags in it, including a rare instance of cartoon profanity.
Dirty fuck! I like the two that are on with the stage. One is famously Bosko's Picture Show that has the newsreel, but it also with Hitler in it, but it also has him saying what we all think is a curse word. And I'm not sure. I think there's been some new research as to what that word is. I've forgotten at this point, but it sort of shows us what movies were like. Through this cartoon, we're able to see what movies were like to people back in those days. I find that interesting.
Now, some of my favorites, I would think, is that were the ones in 1933, like Bosko and with the Three Musketeers, the ones that they were sort of like Bosko in person and Bosko's Picture Show, which were some of the best that the Harmon and Ising studio did.
I quickly watched the first one that was released, Sinking in the Bathtub, as well as the most popular one, I would say, Bosko's Picture Show.
I love Sinking in the Bathtub, too. That one's pretty good. But I think they might have purposely put a little extra effort into that one because it was the first.
The best Bosko cartoons are ones where the situation and the gags from other funny characters are funny, rather than Bosko himself. It's kind of odd because typically the funniest of Warner cartoons and the funniest part about them are the characters, but then again, I guess these aren't really Warner cartoons, they're Harmon and Ising cartoons. My favorites are typically from later on when they learned that Bosko wasn't a very good character. Like Bosko's Picture Show, Ride and Bosko, Bosko in Person, stuff like that.
Trying to think of some other good ones.
The other one I really like is I call it Bosko's Vaudeville Act, but its title is Bosko in Person. You know that one where he's just doing an act. It's him and Honey doing their vaudeville act. It's like a Vitaphone short from 1929 with Bosko and Honey, and I think that's the one, or maybe the other one, but one of those features like a sing-along on the screen.
Bosko in Person, that's another good one. And then least favorites, most of them, to be honest, but there's that stretch of cartoons in like early 1931 are especially mediocre in my Ain't Nature Grand is one. I saw that one a lot on public domain stuff growing up. That one's just really tedious and boring, but they were all trying their hardest. They were all learning the craft, and they did a pretty good job at it, in my opinion.
In 1933, there's only one of the shorts disappointed me, which was the one where he was a sheep herder, because that one went an extra step to be more like Disney by making it more cute, but that made it more boring for me.
But towards the end, I think his shorts became a little too formulaic, with exceptions, of course. But I don't really have least favorite Boskos. A lot of them just blend together, I guess.
They overall give a nice little sense of what 1930s trying to be like Disney was. Trying to get the best animation you could out of your studio, which they especially did towards the end. They did some very cinematic shots taking advantage of a good crew of animators, and that's generally how I feel with the Bosko shorts. They're these good animated pieces with nice music, and you could get a sight a little out of, but overall they're nice little time wasters.
Definitely not a bad start, I would say, other than the fact that it could be connected to unfortunate stereotypes. But there's nothing offensive about him. There's nothing wrong with the cartoons outside of that.
And yeah, of course, Harmon and Ising would take Bosko with them to MGM, where they would change him and all. But the Looney Tunes and Merrie Melodies brand was basically just something for Leon Schlesinger to make a quick buck with, to cash off on the silly symphonies. But even beyond that, like outside of the Merrie Melodies, you can tell that the crew working on the Looney Tunes were just trying to make these funny cartoons with a lot of funny gags and all that, and they were actually starting to take themselves less seriously. And it wasn't long before they finally got us the real funny, raw, amazing stuff that we got a little later on. So really, if it wasn't for Harmon and Ising leaving Schlesinger, who knows where the Looney Tunes would have been.
Now, my least favourites are definitely Bosko the Sheep Herder and Big Hearted Bosko. Now, all in all, the Bosko shorts were interesting to watch, but these particular shorts are not ones I would find myself rewatching again anytime soon. In fact, the Bosko series is not one overall I would revisit often, as opposed to, say, Bugs Bunny shorts and other more better made series.
They did a MGM Bosko cartoon. That was like a clip show of the Warner Brothers cartoons. It's called like Bosko's Parlor Pranks. But that one's interesting because it's worth checking out because it has the ending of Ride 'em Bosko.
Ride 'em Bosko, that features that weird ending with the live action animators are looking at him on a screen and they're wondering what to do next. I mean, and then they just go home, and that's the end of the cartoon.
Which is kind of like an in-joke. Because all the Boskos I noticed, and that actually refreshed my memory, just about all of them ended terribly. They just ended, and that was it. Like, they couldn't figure out endings, and I think that must have been them just playing a joke on themselves. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. I think you're right.
Whereas Ride 'em Bosko ended with that live action part. When they did it a couple years later in the clip show, they actually made like a proper ending for it and everything. It's in color.
Now, during the Bosko period, we also had the Merrie Melodies series start up, which were shorts that had the requirement of having a song be promoted within. So we're going to now discuss about the Harmon and Ising Merrie Melodies of this period, and our favourite shorts and our least favourite shorts.
These are my favorite line of questioning. Just let's go through sections and ask me what are my favorites. That's great.
All right, so I got a lot more to talk about with the Merrie Melodies. They originally started off as just being a way to push a popular song at the time. Just kind of like the Looney Tunes, but definitely the differences between the two brands definitely became the same as time went on. Like, I think with Looney Tunes, eventually, they started off wanting to push a song, but then they were like, no, let's just focus on characters. And then they made the Merrie Melodies after a short little stint with the Spoonie Melodies. I don't know how many people know what the Spoonie Melodies were, but basically they were very limited animation while a guy sang. They weren't very popular. I think only one of them survives today. I think it's on one of the Golden Collections, the first one. But the Merrie Melodies, they were like, okay, well, we'll push the songs in this one. And then later on, when they got color, Merrie Melodies became the color shorts, but eventually Looney Tunes got color too, and the difference is minuscule.
I feel like Harmon and Ising were able to deal with having to put a song in every one of the Merrie Melodies, or at least a chorus of one of these songs, better than Friz Freleng or Tex Avery did, because they hated that. Because putting a song in a cartoon was actually kind of typical of the day, and it was more routine than like something you had to force in at some point. I haven't seen many of these cartoons from the era, but the ones that I had seen, I feel have a better story structure than the Bosko ones, and they genuinely have some funny ideas and characters that I feel like could have actually been a part of the typical Warner period with the funny characters and the breakthrough style of humor when Tex comes on later in the 30s.
Oh, for me, the Merrie Melodies were definitely the stronger part of what was going on. 1933 was probably the only year where I felt that the Boskos were better than the Merrie Melodies, simply because the energy with the music being the focus and was definitely very entertaining. The animation was, of course, also snappy, and it seemed like with those in the Boskos, they were playing Leapfrog with Bob McKimson, and I wouldn't be surprised if they also used a co-director, possibly Friz Freleng as well, because he was supposedly did it from Bosko in Dutch to Bosko's Picture Show. But generally, there were some nice ones.
Yeah, I think the Merrie Melodies were the better series of the two being produced at the time, only because since they didn't have to use like a regular character each time, Rudy Ising had more freedom to kind of do whatever he wanted pretty much. And again, a lot of the cartoons aren't that great per se, but I really like the music from that time period, and the Merrie Melodies give like a good chance to see what popular music in America was like during that time. And in general, I just like I enjoy watching the Merrie Melodies unironically, only because it's it's hard. The energy is kind of infectious. They were trying to cheer people up during like a really hard time, and it's just there's something very like moving about that. The fact that they were legitimately trying to create entertainment to distract people from their troubles, and I think they succeeded in that, in my opinion. Although it's hard to say now since that was a different time period.
I actually preferred these during the Harmon and Ising period for the most part, and that's mainly due to the music used, which was, as I mentioned before, a requirement for these shorts. In fact, these were pretty much like music videos for the time, and a lot of the songs would end up being constantly reused by Carl Starling once he became involved with the music at the Schlesinger studio.
Yeah, well, in the beginning, they were sort of required to use those songs, but Stalling is, he would just naturally reuse stuff because it's part of his background as a theater accompanist. When he'd have an encyclopedic mind about pop tunes and put the appropriate one in whatever where it was needed. If it was a song that was owned by Warner Brothers, they I don't think they had to pay anything or something like that. They had to clear all the music they used, but it was easier if it was a song that was owned by Warner Brothers.
So these early Merrie Melodies to me are just dance sequences. The first few with Foxy and Piggy I really like, but as soon as they go on to do random characters and items coming to life, I really start getting bored after the first minute. Like, for instance, Red-Headed Baby and Great Big Bunch of You.
Let's see. And the Merrie Melodies, the early ones, there's a lot of great ones. Shuffle Off to Buffalo is fun.
Yep.
We're in the Money is sort of fun. Oh, You Don't Know What You're Doing is a favorite of mine.
Yeah.
I like the song. I think that's the reason, but it's a good one.
I guess like a personal favorite of mine would be Freddy the Freshman. I mean, one, because I grew up with it on a public domain VHS, but it's like even watching it now, like it's got a few funny moments here and there. One of which I still crack up with my friends a lot. Like I'm not gonna say which one specifically, but
I think one of my favorites would be Freddy the Freshman because it had a nice song to it, nice animation, and a pretty fun football game with some amusing gags involving the field. And another one I liked was the Organ Grinder because it was just a bit silly, and it had a fun monkey in it.
Some of the best ones, Lady Player Mandolin is definitely a classic. Has a nice Max Fleischer surreal vibe going on there. You don't know what you're doing. Again, the same thing. And I really like how great the production values get towards the end of the series. I like Mountain Music, has some really beautiful animation in it. There's that wonderful scene where there's the ice skater skating around on that mirror from the skating magazine, and it's just it's done in like that classic 30s rubber hose way, but it's a legitimately beautiful piece of animation. And there's just little moments like that you see throughout the series where you see them really, really getting better at their craft.
So out of the ones that I've seen, the only one I can think of that I really liked was Young and Healthy, which kind of had a decent story, and I also thought it had a funny character idea with the fat King Louie that was kind of funny, I thought.
And this might be a very unpopular opinion, is Lady Play Your Mandolin. First of all, I think the song is like very energetic and exciting. The two characters in that short, Foxy and Roxy, I believe it is, they definitely are just Mickey clones. They're pretty blatant Mickey clones, but the thing is, everything was a Mickey clone, and we're getting to the worst of them, because at least they're entertaining to watch, and the cartoon has some great visuals with this horse that gets like intoxicated and just ruins the entire party as it's going crazier and crazier until a very dramatic end. I just like some of the shots in that short, and I believe it is the first Merrie Melody. too. So it was a great start. And, I really consider that to be the first really great Looney Tunes / Merrie Melodies short, in my opinion.
Much like with the Bosko shorts, the best ones are on the Golden Collection Volume 6, but even then there were a few that weren't on there, as mentioned, like Lady Play Your Mandolin and Freddy the Freshman.
The ones I like the most are, for certain, Lady Play Your Mandolin, Hitting the Trail for Hallelujah Land, Goopy Gear, and You're Too Careless with Your Kisses. Mostly because I like those songs and gags. They really make the cartoon for me. The song's really good.
But like, as for actual least favorites, again, I haven't seen too many to really say so, but I guess like Hitting the Trail for Hallelujah Land is pretty anti-PC in its own right. And honestly, when you watch a lot of those cartoons for back to back, they kind of feel, I don't want to say they feel the same, but they just feel so dry anyway. Like they're kind of devoid of a lot of personality, so to speak. But either way, the Harmon and Ising cartoons, they're not for everybody, but they have their moments overall.
As for least favorites, probably a racist one. I'm sorry, I don't really know where to go beyond that.
The worst by far is Hitting the Trail for Hallelujah Land, and that's due to its racial stereotypes. But aside from that, at least the others, even the other lesser ones, at least had something to like. The last Merrie Melodies of this period, Where in the Money, for example, had a dull final act with lots of reused animation, but the song itself and that sequence at the beginning, it's great. So, yeah, but all in all, at least there's something to like in just about every single one of these.
For some least favorites, it's kind of hard to say, but some of the ones that contain stereotypes, of course, like Hallelujah Land and Crosby, Columbus, and Valley. That one's saved by some of the caricature bits, but they still aren't that good. Overall, I would feel that the Merrie Melodies around this time were a good stepping stone in practicing musical timing, having nice snappy moments, a clever thing here and there, and overall just some nice fun. They're a bit more filling than the Boskos, but not by much.
And least favorite, probably Hitting the Trail for Hallelujah Land. That one comes to mind. And there's a few others. It's the thing with the Harmon and Ising shorts is that it's and with most of the cartoons from that period, it's more specific moments that stand out as opposed to like the whole shorts themselves. Like there's moments where you see like great Bob McKimson animation and stuff like that, but as a whole, the cartoons made for that are very high quality for the time period, in my opinion.
And also, unlike the Bosko shorts, watching all of these in a row wasn't actually a bad thing, because at least you're getting a nice variety. You're getting different characters, different songs. So unlike Bosko, watching these in a row was actually pretty fun and interesting.
I think 1933 overall was kind of a breakthrough period for the Harmon and Ising studio when they realized what was going well and what wasn't going well and what they could revise with their cartoons they were selling to Warner's. And it's kind of a shame that they left then, and then Buddy comes in.
So that will be the end of the first episode in this little series exploring the first 250 Looney Tunes. Next up, we will be taking a look at everyone's favourite character, Buddy, and along with the first Friz-Freleng period at Warner's. So let me know what you think about this episode, and if you have any suggestions for future podcast and YouTube episodes, and because I'll be doing some non-Looney Tunes stuff as well once this particular series has finished. So thanks for listening, guys, and until next time, take care.